Greetings. In this video we're going to be discussing about the commercial contract. This contract is used when there's going to be a sale of a commercial property. You could use this to draft for your clients, whether it be the buyer or the seller that you're representing, and use this to put something together for the sale of the commercial property. A lot of times with commercial sales, and especially leases, there's usually attorneys involved, and attorneys might draft up an additional contract or a separate contract. On leases, there's almost always they have attorneys draft up a lease contract for commercial properties, but sometimes in sales you could use this contract, or the attorneys will also draft up an additional sales contract to their terms and specifications. So it really just depends, but for this particular video we're going to discuss about this Florida Realtors commercial contract that you could fill out if in the event you're doing a sale like this. Before we begin, I'd like to take a quick minute to discuss about our real estate brokerage very quickly. Nizz Realty Inc. is a 100% real estate commission brokerage. This means we pay you 100% of your real estate commission. We have $0 agent fees. The only fee that we charge is a transaction fee whenever you close a deal, and that's it. We have no surprises, no hidden fees or anything like that. So we understand what the competition is charging, and we'd like to be competitive, so you decide the fee amount of the transaction fee. As long as it's fair and reasonable, we're very negotiable. For further information, feel free to visit us at nizzrealty.com here, or you can give us a call for a free confidential consultation. But enough about our real estate brokerage. Let's get into today's video and discuss about the commercial contract. So as always, when you begin with these contracts, you fill out the buyer's information, the buyer's name up here. We're just going to put buyer's name, however they may be, then the seller's name, of course. You'd fill that out accordingly. Fairly simple to start off here. Next part is the street address, so you'd put the street address here, whatever that is. So we're just going to put some placeholders here. So the legal description, you'd get that from the public records. It's usually a very long descriptions sometimes. Other times it's not too long. It really just depends. If you need to find out how to get the legal description, feel free to contact us for further explanation, but it's in the public records and so forth. Usually it's something like lot 14 block 23 or 25 or something like that. So you'd get that from the records and go from there. And then personal property, if there's anything included in the sale, desk, refrigerator, something like that. Let's just fill it in something in here and say a desk, chair, and we'll go from there. But you'd fill that out there, or you'd make like an additional exhibit and attach it to this contract. But a lot of times you'd fill it out right here. Let's get into the next part here, which is the purchase price. Let's say for this particular contract we're doing a purchase price of, let's just say $1 million. And then we're going to have the deposit held in escrow. The escrow agent, could be the title company holding the escrow funds, or one of the real estate brokerages. Let's just say we're holding it for this particular deal, and the escrow amount that we're holding is $100,000. Now you put the email address here, the phone number of the escrow agent, whoever's holding it. This will be our company here in this contract. We're just going to leave that blank for now. And we just write something. We just put something here for a placeholder. But you'd put the number and email address there. Any additional deposits, if there's going to be any additional deposits made from the initial one, you'd mark this here and then put this information. You fill it out accordingly. So if within 3 days or within more days than that, any additional deposits going to be made, then you'd fill that out accordingly from there. Total financing, you can fill that out if you need to. We're going to leave that blank for now, or anything other that you're going to be putting here as far as putting down for the escrow deposit or how much you're financing and so forth. But for now we're just going to leave it like this, fairly simple. If you need assistance with filling out these other parts here with additional deposits, you can reach out to us and we'll explain further. But for purposes of this video, we're just going to leave it as a one deposit being made. It's the purchase price, and we're going to move on. Time for acceptance. You'd put a date here whenever the the time of this video is the 11th, so let's say we want this contract to be executed by the 14th. So that's for the effective date. As you can see here, the effective date of this contract is the date on which the last one of the seller or buyer has signed an initial and delivered this offer or the final counter offer. Or, and you put a date here. Usually I like to leave this the same as the date that's up there. So if it has the 14th, everything needs to be done by this date or whatever date you're choosing it to be. Then you just leave it from there. It's pretty simple. You just pick a date for the time the contract expires, and you just leave it at that. So for this contract, we're going to leave it at the 14th. Everyone needs to sign by then. The next part we're going to be discussing is the closing date and location. I like to put a closing date of, let's say we want this done by the end of the month. I also like to put them on or before, and then put the date amount. That's how I like to fill this out personally. So if it closes sooner, great. If it doesn't have to be on this specific date. It could be on or before this date. So you just fill in that date, and then you could type in on the or before part right before the date, just to specify that it can close sooner. Because if everyone wants to close sooner, then by all means, close the deal sooner. Down here, you'd fill it out the county in which you're doing the closing at. Let's just say that it's being done in Miami-Dade, or Miami-Dade County. It could be in whatever county that you're doing the contract in, so that's where the closing would take place. Third-party financing. So you'd fill this out if there's any third-party financing being involved here, such as, apply for third-party financing. For this part of the contract, we're going to leave it blank. We're going to say it's a cash deal. If you need help filling out this particular part, feel free to reach out to us and we'll explain it. But for right now, we're just going to leave it as there's no third-party financing involved in this particular contract. It's just going to be done as a cash deal or regular financing. So the next part down here is the title, seller. Seller has a legal capacity to and will convey marketable title to the property by, usually it's done by statutory warranty deed. It can be done by special warranty or something else other. If that is the case, usually there's some type of something different being done here. Most of the time it's being done as a statutory warranty deed, but if you have something different going on, I'd recommend you contact us for more information to explain, but usually it's done with that or the special warranty in some situations. But if it's something else or different, then you might want to consult an attorney to discuss further what's going on here to make sure things are done correctly, or depending on the situation, talk to your broker and see how to fill this out accordingly. And then the next part here, usually this is left well, you'd list any other matters to which the title is subject to, but most of the time it's left blank. Usually this isn't filled out any further, but if there's something else going on here, then you'll fill it out accordingly. If you need further assistance, definitely speak to your broker about that, or an attorney. Same thing with this paragraph here. If there's something else going on there, then you need to fill it out. The next part here, the evidence of the title. The party who pays for the premium of the title insurance policy. You check one of the seller's or buyer's expense here within how many days after the effective date, or at least how many days prior to closing. Let's just say for this contract the seller is going to be paying for this within, you can fill it out as within 5 days, or you can fill it out, let's say, how many days to closing. One or the other here. For this particular video, let's just say it's going to be done, let's say 8 days prior to closing. And usually you'd fill out a title insurance commitment, this first box here. Usually you wouldn't fill out an abstract title, which is the next box down here. But sometimes that may be the case. Most situations it's usually the first one here, the first box you check, but if not, then you fill out the abstract title down here. Most of the time it's a title commitment from a Florida licensee title insurer. I don't think I've ever seen the abstract title, but if you have something else going on, then once again speak to your attorney or broker. But most situations it's going to be this first box here, and then you just move on. Fairly simple. The next part is title examination. This paragraph. This here is, you could fill in a date here. The seller will cure the defects within how many days from the receipt of the notice. Usually like to fill in a number here. I highly recommend it. The number amount you fill in here is really at your discretion or whatever is agreed upon from the parties that the defects will be cured. You could put something like 10 days there or 15 days. Let's say we're going to do something between the middle there, like 13 days for this particular contract. Fairly simple. Just pick a number there, what's agreed upon, something reasonable, and move on to the next part. If there's a survey being done, check this box, for the surveys and so forth. We're not going to be filling out this part of the contract, but if you are filling it out, it's fairly standard and simple. A seller within how many days, deliver to the buyer copies of the survey, or a buyer at the seller or buyer's expense will deliver the survey and so forth. Deliver and examine title evidence to obtain a current certified survey of the property. This is pretty self-explanatory. You just who's going to be paying for it, and is the buyer doing this or is the seller delivering a survey? You'd fill this out accordingly if what the situation is. So let's just say that the seller is going to, within 8 days of the effective date, going to deliver the copies and so forth. And if anything different, you'd fill out the other boxes down below. Whether the buyer, let's say at the buyer's expense, is going to be doing the title evidence and obtain a current certified survey of the property. And then you'd also, if there's encroachments and so forth, buyer will accept the property with existing encroachments. You'd mark that if that's the case and so forth. But which one or the other you'd pick here pretty much. If the buyer is going to accept it with the encroachments, or the other paragraph, which will constitute the title defect to be cured within the curative period, which is discussed up here. Most of the time the buyer is not going to accept the property with the encroachments, but they could if they want to, I guess. So most of the time this other box is checked here. That's if you're filling out this paragraph about surveys here. If you need more information or this discussed further, contact your broker or an attorney, or we can feel free to reach out to us if you're a part of our brokerage, and we'll explain to you further of how to fill this out accordingly if you want to get this correct. But this is a standard way of filling it out. Basically the seller has the effective time to deliver, and the buyer at their expense or the seller's expense, and so forth, to have this done, and then the encroachments box down here. So the next part is the property condition. Most of the time it's as is. I really have never seen it done any other way. So it's usually going to be put in as the as is right here. A lot of times this is left blank here. But you could fill in the dollar amount here if you want. Basically discussing the seller to return the property to required condition existing at the end of the due diligence period, costs of which is not to exceed whatever the amount is, 1.5% of the purchase price. Usually you fill in a dollar amount here or just leave it blank. A lot of times I see it left blank, so that's what we're going to do for this particular video. And we're going to mark the as is here because that's how it's being sold. And that's pretty much it from there. You move on to the next paragraph, which is down here. The operation of property during contract period. You fill out one or the other down here. It's basically discussing any charges such as renting vacant space that materially affect the property or buyer's intended use of property will be permitted only with buyer's consent or without buyer's consent. You can feel free to read this paragraph, and basically you're marking the box for with the buyer's consent or without the buyer's consent. This could go either or, whatever you're choosing here. A lot of times we choose the with the buyer's consent, but if that's not the case, you choose the other box. Once again, if you have questions about this, contact your broker, but it's fairly standard here. Most of the time it's this box being checked, so that's what we're going to do here and move on to the next paragraph. Nothing to fill out here, stuff to read if you care to read about the closing procedure. cure period, a lot of times this is left blank. You could fill in a date here if you want to have a different date, but most of the time it's left blank, or you fill in the number 5 there, or something different if you feel it's necessary. But we're going to leave that fairly simple and keep it moving. More paragraphs that you could read to discuss. It's not really for you to fill in here for your clients. Assignability. This contract may be assigned to a related entity and otherwise is not assignable or is assignable. You fill out this part of the paragraph. This could be one or the other. I've seen this is basically if the buyers want to assign this contract to maybe another entity that the buyer is affiliated with. They might be purchasing the original contract might be in one company's name, and maybe they want to assign it to another company that they are part of, or maybe another person or individual that they're associated with. So you basically allow that to happen, or you cannot allow it to happen. A lot of times when I do these contracts, it's not assignable. Whoever the contract is, the buyer is doing. Whoever is the buyer, is that who you're doing business with. But it's depending on the situation, you may want it to be assignable. The buyer can assign this contract to another related entity. So it really just depends. It could be one or the other. I've seen basically either of these boxes checked, or the assignability be done in different scenarios where it can be and it can't be assigned. For this particular video, we're going to say it can't be assigned. We're doing business with this particular buyer, and that's the only buyer that's purchasing the property. There's no other entity involved. But if you have a different situation going on, feel free to fill this out and check this box accordingly. But for this video, we're checking this. It's not assignable, and we're moving on. Next part is the broker's paragraph. If you're the listing agent or listing broker, you put the company name here, the licensee, basically the agent's name here, address, telephone, fax, email if there is, and then your relationship. I highly recommend, in the state of Florida especially, I don't know about other states, but in the state of Florida we always operate as a transaction broker. You can operate in a different relationship, but we don't really recommend it. But there are other single agency relationship or no brokerage relationship. We usually always operate as a transaction broker, so that's what we're going to stick with. So that you could represent the buyer and the seller, if that's the case may be. So usually always operate as a transaction broker. If you want further clarification on that, feel free to reach out to us. But for this video, we're just going to stick with we're a transaction broker and move on. Compensated by seller pursuant to both parties a listing agreement. You fill it out accordingly. Most of the time it's a listing agreement that's being done here. And the buyer's broker, same thing you fill out here, whatever their relationship is, and if they're being pursuant to MLS compensation. But usually there's a listing agreement, and in the MLS, if it is listed, there's a commission split amount put in there. So this is just discussing the commissions and the brokerages involved. If you need help filling this out, feel free to reach out and we'll explain it further, or speak to your broker. That's pretty much it. We're at the end of the contract here. The optional clauses here, you'd fill out one of these if any of these is going to be involved in accompanying this contract. Any additional terms, you can write them in here. And down here, of course, this paragraph is pretty important. It's intended to be a legally binding contract. If not fully understood, seek advice of an attorney prior to signing. And feel free to read through this paragraph. It's pretty important and it's a good disclosure. And that's pretty much it. The rest of the contract is just putting the buyer's names, tax ID number if they want to, and so forth, their title, telephone number, signature. Basically the names and signatures of the involved parties is what's being written in here. And down at the bottom, addresses for purpose of notice. So make sure everyone signs and dates, fills out this information accordingly, and make sure everyone initials every page, because there are initials required on every page, as you can see down here. So make sure everyone initials. And that's pretty much for the commercial contract. If you have any further questions about it, feel free to reach out to us, or as I said in the beginning of this video and throughout the video, speak to an attorney or your broker for further information. But this is a fairly standard way to fill out this contract and all the paragraphs involved in it. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.